Everyone, it's Desiree here, and I am going to show the first 5 cards that were created from the December 2017 card kit from Simon Says Stamp. This was an awesome kit. You can see all the beautiful papers and the stamp set. Very cute. So let's get started with card 1. So let's start with the easiest. We're going to use the panel that came from the paper pad, and I'm going to use the Lawn Fawn Stitch Rectangle die, and I'm just going to cut a section of that out. I also cut a strip from the pattern paper that was the red and white stripe, so I just want to use that as an accent piece off of this panel that we're going to embellish upon. So this is a really the Doodle Bug paper pads are great because they do have a lot of those types of papers where you can create simple cards using what's already from the paper pad. You don't have to go crazy with techniques. So that's what my layout is looking like right now, and we're going to stick to it because we're going to use my art glitter glue to put that down. I'm using a red 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base. I'm going to be using my fun foam to prop up this card panel and directly adhere that onto the card base now, since we're going to be doing a lot of embellishing, or some embellishing I should say, on top of this card panel just to jazz it up a bit. I also pulled one of the sentiments from the paper pack, and this one of course says Santa Claus is coming to town. And I'm going to adhere that right along the top of the fireplace. I figured it looked good really there and to stay on the the card panel. I didn't want to prop it up because I've already propped up the panel itself. So I try not to have my cards too thick, but sometimes, you know, we fail. I'm going to grab my Wink of Stella Gold, this is not the clear, and I'm going to highlight in the fire, just put some little sparkle to the flames, and then I'm going to fill in the star on top of the tree using this glitter pen. Just again, give it some sparkle. I also pulled out the, it's like glossy accents. It came from one of the previous Hero art kits. Figured I would use this up. So when you don't use that container for a while, it does clog up. So after we unclog that, my first intention was to just go over the baubles on the wreath, but I got a little bit carried away. They started merging together. So now we're going to just cover up the wreath and make that a little bit 3D and add some gloss to that. The next thing that I'm going to do, I have this Spectrum Noir glitter pens. I have them all. You can buy them in sets of 12 based upon seasons. The first color I'm using here is called Blue Topaz, and I'm just going to color over the baubles on the Christmas tree. The green that I'm using here is Emerald Green. The next color is a very pale pink that's called Rose Quartz, and then I'm pulling in the Blue Topaz again to cover up that last blue bauble. The red that I've pulled in is called Hearthside, and they give great glitter. I'm using the Moonstone on the stockings that are hanging, and I'm using my clear glitter pen for the hats and the little tiny note that's sitting there to the left, again just to give that some sparkle. So a really quick card, but you can have fun embellishing these in any way that you want. So for card number 2, we're going to stick with the paper pad, again keeping it simple, but we are pulling in some dies. So this is going to be a landscape type card, so I've used the Lawn Fawn Stitch Rectangle to cut out that panel, and I'm using my Lawn Fawn scalloped dies, and I use the tonic glitter paper. This is a really good glitter paper, and it's very thick. It is extremely thick. So I'm also using a piece of fun foam, and I'm going to prop up one of those sentiments that came in the card pack that says December 25th. And I used my scallop die for the glitter because you can see the sentiment panel had that scalloped as well. I didn't want to go for a third. I thought that was too many scallops. So I'm using my Tombow Mono tape runner to adhere this panel onto my 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base. Of course, this will now be a side folding card base. And I did use on the fun foam not only my scrappy tape, but I also put some glue down on that too, because again, it was going into the glue. So I like to use both adhesives when I'm going down onto glitter paper. And then for the glitter paper to adhere this, I just went straight with my art glitter glue. I'm going to pull in my Spectrum Noir glitter pen just to highlight the words and the images up onto this sentiment. So I'm just going to color in over the little gumdrops, the 25, the little gingerbread man, and then focus going across the December as well, just to add more glitter, because we just didn't have enough glitter on this with the glitter paper. The glitter paper, while it is thick, the glitter does come off a little bit, but not as bad as some. I do have the glitter paper from Recollections, and it's a good glitter paper, but it's very chunky, so it can come off more. So this only comes off a little bit. So for the third card, I pulled in my Spectrum Noir, you got a theme going on here, right? ColorBlend, the colored pencils. I do have the set of Prismacolors. They are my favorite, but I am finding I'm really liking these Spectrum Noir colored pencils at all. They're very creamy and a good price. They have, I believe, 5 sets, and they're $24.95 each. So I'm taking the panel with Merry Christmas that's waved throughout this, and I'm cutting along that sentiment and creating those waves. So you'll see what we'll be doing with those, because I have 3 of those cut out. And I'm just going to start coloring. I'm not going to show all of the coloring. I can focus on that. If you want to see how I use colored pencils, I can create a single card video for that. But you can see, you don't need a big set. Yes, I am that person that has to have every color. Yes, I am. I will admit it. But you really don't, because you can use just one colored pencil and get the different hues from it. You can see by me coloring Santa's hat, I'm only using one color right now. And as long as I put a light base down and then I just put more pressure around the outer parts, I'm getting a shading effect. So I've colored Santa, and now I'm going to move on to Mrs. Claus and color her in the same way. It's great when it comes to these images, you know, when you stick with traditional colors, you know, you don't need that many colors. You know, red, green, gray, black. That's pretty much it. Flash. Don't forget your flash. So I'm just going through and coloring in each of the images. So that's Mrs. Claus. And now we're going to do the tree. The pencil sharpener that I use, this is the Prismacolor sharpener. It works very well with the Spectrum Noir pencils. I have found it is better if you use the sharpener, move the sharpener and not the pencil. It does sharpen better when it comes to our colored pencils. But I was glad to know that I could use that sharpener and cross it over into these. And that sharpener has 2 point styles, a short, sharp point, or an elongated sharp point. I do like the elongated sharper point when it comes to the colored pencils. I do work better when there's a point on my pencils when I use them. So I'm just going to color in the trees, and now I'm just going to fussy cut them out. So I start doing that. So now that I have them fussy cut, I have a distress marker, and it's black soot, and I always use that because it's got a great fine point at the edge. I use this now because my Memento black fine liner died. So I use this just to go around the edges, and you can see that white spot that was there, it's no longer there. It helps to make your pieces, when you cut right up against the line, to look finished. The beauty of it, I won't have to worry about this. I believe I'm getting something special for the holidays. It'll be awesome. So now we're going to work on the panel. Okay, enough of that. Now I'm going to work on the panel. I'm going to unclog my glue applicator. And I'm going to start adhering these panels. So the one in the back is going to be flat against the panel. The one in the middle is going to have one layer of fun foam attached to it. And then the bottom wavy layer is going to have two. So it's almost like a stepping stone that I'm creating. So I'm creating wavy hills out of this panel, and I'm going to set my pieces all throughout it. So I set the top one. Now I'm going to set the lower one, because I'll have room to set the middle one down below to make sure that the back panel is not showing. And I thought the back panel was cute because it was all little snowflakes that are coming down. So it's like a little tiny stepping stone there. So now I'm just playing with my placement with Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And then my tray. I'm leaving the baubles and the star because, of course, you know we're going to embellish those using special things. So I'm going to use my foam squares to prop up the tray, because it's technically sitting between the middle and the back layer. So it'll be even with the middle layer. And then the Mr. and Mrs. Claus, I'm just going to put a foam square on the top, and then my art glitter glue down on the bottom, because they're going to cross over layers. So just to make sure they don't get crunched or anything like that, just to keep them even up onto the card. And then once we have them set in place, they are so cute. They really are cute. It's really not my style, the cutesiness, but how can you not resist them? Seriously. So I'm using my stickles, and this is called Tidings. It's a beautiful gold. So I'm going to use that for the star, and then I'm going to use my Christmas red. I'm going to make her little earrings, a nice bright red, and then I'm going to fill in the larger of the baubles with my glitter, my stickles, just to give some glitter onto them. And then I'm going to use the confetti sequins that were in the kit. You know, I have to admit, they're beautiful sequins. I don't know if I like them more than regular sequins. I think I like regular sequins more. Yes, my iridescent. No, they did not make an appearance. But I kind of like the look of sequins. I don't know. I have to keep on thinking about that. Let me know your thoughts. Do you like those confettis? I mean, I think they're okay, but I don't know. I've got mixed feelings on them. I'm using my Blizzard Nuvo drops, and I'm going to use it like I would a stickles, and I'm just filling in the fur on the hat and around their outfits and on her apron, just to add some sparkle to this piece. And when you use it like a stickles, it does dry flat. It dries just like a stickles, so it's really cool. I wasn't looking for dimension, just for a little bit of sparkle. So for card number 4, I grabbed the red panel from the card stock provided, and it's got little tiny dots. But I'm going to be using the glass of milk, the cookie, and the 2 sizes of hearts. And you all know from previous videos, I love to create my own pattern paper by using my Versamark ink and an embossing powder, or just using ink, because it stretches out your stamps, gives great use for them, and you can create some great designs that can match the stamps, the other stamps that are in the set. So it's something I always try to consider when I do purchase stamp sets. You know, can I create this? Can I create that? You know, how far can I go with this when I make my purchases? So you can see we've got the milk glasses done. I'm using the large heart now. I've got the cookies already done. And now we're just doing each image individually. So did all of the one image first, heat embossed it, did the next one, heat embossed it. I always do this in layers so I don't accidentally make a mistake. I'm going to do the sentiment now. All I want for Christmas is cookies and you, basically everything sweet. So I put that on a piece of scrap black paper, cardstock, and I'm using my Recollections white embossing powder. It's called Snow, and that was the same embossing powder that I used to make my pattern paper. I'm using a Lawn Fawn stitch rectangle. Oh my goodness, in card number 3, the wonky die did make an appearance, so sorry, forgot to announce that. But we're back to the Lawn Fawn stitched, and now I grabbed one of my Prisma white colored pencils. Prisma makes the best white. There's nobody that can beat it. I have them, I bought them loose, a whole box loose, just to have them on hand, because I do use the white a lot to blend other colors, and to just give a base if I'm working on craft, or in this case, another colored cardstock. But I'm just giving a shading. I want the red and white. This is one of my favorites. So you can see we've got just the shadings of it when it comes to the white pencil. I am going to use the craft cardstock, the Nina Desert Storm. This is a beautiful color. I usually do like the Recollections craft. To me, it does look more of a darker craft paper bag. I propped that panel up using my fun foam, and now I'm pulling in my Spectrum Noir glitter pen, and we're going to color in just the hearts. I want the hearts to have just a little bit of shimmer on this card. And realized, if you all would notice that, I realized I missed a glass of milk. So we're going to real quick color that in so that we can have that set. And now we're going to attach or look at the placement for the sentiment. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted it up onto the panel. Of course, I apply the glue first before I put the row of foam squares down onto the bottom, because this is how we roll. We always do things a little bit backwards. It's a process, and you all are getting to see firsthand and maybe nightmarishly my process when I create. So I put glue at the top because that was on the red panel that's propped up, and then I put the foam squares at the bottom so that, again, it would stay even. I have my jute cording. I just get that, I get that from Joann's, actually. And I just fold it over itself 3 times, and then I tie a bow. It's similar, I think Jennifer McGuire, I've seen her do it this way as well. It does create a beautiful, I love using that technique when it comes to the jute. And it's so quick. Look how quick. That is not edited. That is how quick I made that bow. Give me a ribbon, forget it. Jute cording? Yep, I can do it. I'm going to use my glue dots to adhere my bow to the top of the card panel. I've got to keep playing with the bow, of course, because I can't just leave it alone. I'm going to set that in place, and then we're just going to trim off those edges. A little bit too wily for me, so we're just going to give it a little bit of a hair trim there. And that's our card. I think it's really cute. Very simple. This is definitely one of my favorites. Card number 5, you guys have heard me say before, there's always one card that just makes you crazy. This is it. We did some ripping and thinking and all of that with this. So I'm going to do the sentiment first. I knew I wanted this sentiment, and it's the same one. All I want for Christmas is cookies and you. Basically everything sweet. And we're going to heat set that onto my black scrap cardstock that I have always sitting on my desk. It never seems to leave. There's always a lot of scraps. I'm going to use one of my Lawn Fawn banner, everyday banner dies, because it's easier, because I can't cut straight. And we're going to set that aside. I'm pulling in a Lawn Fawn stitch rectangle, and I'm using 3 of the panels from the cardstock. And I just want to cut this piece of cardstock. This is my Nina Solar 80 pound. And I just want to cut this piece because with the glitter paper, I cut all different sizes of strips. I used my Tim Holtz Tonic Studio paper trimmer, which is awesome. cuts through this glitter paper like butter. And what I'm showing here is I'm going to adhere these strips down, and we're going to do it on a diagonal. So you can use your glue. Just, have a piece of scrap paper below so you don't get glue all over the place. And then you can trim off your edges as you go. You can also apply your glue directly onto the base. If you can get a straight line, know exactly where you're going. I got lucky with this one. Realized I didn't want to do it that way. Or you can just grab a piece of scrap paper and then use your tape runner along these strips. I found that is the best way. I didn't, usually when I do this, I would just coat the card stock base that I'm using to put these strips on, but that's when I'm doing it solid. I'm butting them right next to each other. I would do that. I wanted to have space, so we're making a very sugary, glittery, like background candy cane panel. I love the panel of this card. Once we have everything set, we're going to trim off all the edges. Again, the thick cardstock, so I should have used a bigger set of scissors on that, but you can see they were close. So I think it looks great. I really like this. I was happy in the beginning, but you can just see with these layers that you have, the dye, I really struggled to get that through. I probably should have put another piece of cardstock underneath it so it would cut through, but no worries. I used my, we just use our scissors to cut around it. It doesn't do any damage. This is where it started going downhill. So the placement of these, I wanted to keep the borders around it, realized the borders were too big. I couldn't get my 3 focal points up onto my card. So now I trimmed away the borders. They all had stitches, or 2 of them had stitches. For the cake down below there, I actually used one of my stitched rectangle dies from My Favorite Things to give it a stitch edging, because the other 2 already had the stitches on it. So I'm really struggling with positioning these. I'm like, okay, let's get the card panel onto my 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base. Let's see if we can get a better idea when it came to this. So we're just going to start adhering them. I'm using my foam squares just to put these onto my card base. Thinking, okay, that's where I want my sentiment to go. So I'm going to put my Christmas tree in the middle there. And then I'm going to place my foam squares on my sentiment. And now this is where I start thinking again. I couldn't go, but once I put it that way, I'm like, oh yeah. So now we're going to rip these the panel off. These foam squares are amazingly strong. I mean, once they're adhered, they're on there. You've really got to catch it quick. So I have my sentiment down. I really liked it. It's a little bit different to be on an angle. I was able to remove the remnants of the foam squares, and I was able to put that panel. So again, we got the rule of thirds going on there. Everything's to the one side, focus is up to the left corner, and that looked better. It's not perfect, but it was better than where I was going. I'm using my Spectrum Noir just to highlight some of the images here, because we don't have enough glitter definitely on this one. And that is our final card. So here's our recap. Just going to re-show the cards that we created in part 1 from the 2017 December card kit from Simon Says. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We have a great time here. This is a wonderful community. We learn from each other. I learn a lot of things from you guys. Love your comments. So if you have any, please leave them down below. Please know, I'm realizing that if some people are leaving comments through a Google Plus account, I am not able to answer those comments. So just know that I'm not ignoring you. So if I remember the comments that are worthy to, not worthy, that was a rude word, but able to be answered, I will. But just please know that. All the products that I used will be listed down below in the description with links as best as I can. And always remember, people, be creative.